Hello, everybody. Welcome into my latest live broadcast. Today is the 20th of July, 2020. There's a lot of 20s in that number. My name is, do I need to say it? I'm Carey Holzman. Thank you guys so much for joining me. Hey, I guess some of you might be new here. You don't know who the heck I am, and most of you watching for a while still have no idea who I am. So we're all good there. A couple of things I'm going to deal with. That doesn't sound right. A couple of things I want to talk about today. One, of course, the title of the video, Overclocking is Dead. I'm going to get more into that in just a minute. First, first, I have to do what I have to do. I can't really officially start a podcast. Podcast? It's not a podcast. I can't start a YouTube video without some unpaid sponsorship from Coca-Cola. I suppose it is a paid sponsorship. I pay them a lot of money. They're not giving this stuff away. Not to me, they aren't. But it makes my taste buds happy. Brings me happiness and joy. Not so much healthy, but happy. So I'm going to stick with happy over healthy. In the meantime, I got a lot of emails from you guys. I constantly get messages from you guys, and most of the time I barely have time to just reply, thank you, or, something really short. And today I had a few emails I'm going to read aloud to you, a few messages. One is a message I received from a good friend of the channel, Madi. Madi has been diagnosed with COVID-19, so he is currently fighting that, and of course, he is getting treatment for it, and thank goodness, and hopefully he'll just be fine. But in the meantime, we'll send some positive vibes Madi's way there in Florida, where there's a big COVID outbreak, as well as Texas and Arizona. Those are kind of the three hot spots in the United States, and I don't really go out anyway, but I definitely don't want to be going out right now. Now, that being said, a couple other messages and packages have arrived from viewers, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. And then I'm going to get on to the topic of the video. So welcome in, everybody. We've got, let me see. We've got about 365 people watching right now. So thanks so much for joining me today. And I just have to go to a folder here. I've been running behind as always. And let's see what we got here. Geo Johnson wrote in, and Geo says, hey, Carey, I know you get a ton of email, and you surely don't have time to read all of them, but please read this one. I've sent you messages in the past, and I'm sure they probably fell through the cracks, but with your inspiration and with the help of Catherine Anna Hauserman, I was able to complete my first system build in March of 2019. I've been repairing computers for friends and family for 25 years, but this is my very first complete build. I want to acknowledge you and Catherine for helping me in this endeavor, and I'm not able to attach a slideshow video of the build to this email, so I'm including a link to it to my Google Drive, and you can download it and share it. I also am attaching a letter of acknowledgement to you and Catherine. Please feel free to share these with our community if you wish. I watch all of your YouTube videos. I'm a longtime subscriber and a contributor to your channel. Keep up the great work, and thanks again for sharing your experience and expertise. And that's from Geo Johnson. He's in Otsego, Michigan. And I will show you his video. I haven't actually seen it myself. So let's take a look at that. Let's see, we need a media source on OBS, and then we just click OK, and then we browse for the master file, which is on the NAS. And we sort these files by date so I can find it quickly, since I have no idea what it's called. There it is, my new computer build. And then let's see, all those options look good. Let's hit OK. Now this is the video from Geo Johnson here, showing the parts. Did a nice job with this video. I'm very impressed so far with the still photos. Even when you take still pictures, you can still make it into an interesting, well, he called it a slideshow, but there he's got it assembled and says it passes the smoke test. So we took a big leap there. He's got clearly the Scythe Mugen 5 cooler. I like how he spell checked everything. It's all spelled correctly. He's going to show off his cable management. Always good to see. That's very clean. Very nicely done, Geo. And kind of an out of focus picture here, but you get the idea. I see he put a towel down to avoid scratching the top of the table. It's not a bad idea. Lazy Susan is recommended, and the link to the Lazy Susans that I use are in the video notes below my video. He's taken a lot of really nice pictures. He put the Go Faster stickers on because, you know, that matters. He decided to add a heatsink to his M.2 drive, although it doesn't really help all that much. It does look a lot nicer and doesn't hurt anything unless it interferes with the installation of PCI cards that may be installed next to it. Let's see. Yeah, it looks good. It matches the board really well. And he's running the test on his Samsung 970 EVO. He's getting the expected numbers. Obviously, we're not looking to reach any new world records. We want to see that we're in the ballpark. He says it's cool as a cucumber after 20 minutes of Prime 95, although it's a little small for me to read. Hopefully you guys can see that okay. And he calls it the Black Beauty. Well, it looks like, what's he using there? Is that a fractal design case? And he had some balloons. Look at that. Now, that's the kind of pride I'm talking about. This is something I try to relate or convey rather to you guys about what it feels like to build a computer and have it working, and how you're very, very inspired, you know, to want to share that with people. Say, look at what I did. Isn't this incredible? So thank you for sharing that, Gio. I hope that inspires people who may otherwise think, oh, I don't know if I can do it. Pretty unusual story to hear somebody fixing computers for 25 years but has never built their own. But, you know, there you have it. It exists. Luke Greenia says prayers for Mahdi. Okay, I mean, that's nice. I just think positive thoughts, prayers, whatever. But it's well appreciated, and I'm sure, I hope Mahdi's watching. We can keep him entertained anyway if he's not feeling well. Let me go back to a couple more emails to share with you. Oh, Mira Ora contributed $20 and says, I get to watch this one. Right on, Mira Ora. Thank you for your support. Michael Ferguson writes in, and Michael says, oh, it's Dr. Michael. Excuse me. He says, I've been watching your Fantex i9 9900KS build with great interest. That's the system behind me. This is sort of a pleasure build. Can we say it's a pleasure build? Yeah, I'm going to call it the pleasure build. He says, I have completed a similar build on an Asus Z390A motherboard, and he's always been an Asus builder. He says, I have no issues with Gigabyte as a quality manufacturer. However, I have some observations based on your problems in your latest video with the Gigabyte Z390M gaming motherboard. I don't recall having any problems with it, but okay. I think it was a BIOS thing, right? He says, first, I'm working on the assumption that you have a revision 1.0 motherboard. I don't know, probably. Because it appears that your actual motherboard is a very early build. Obviously, the build date will be on the BIOS main screen, and its age will, to me at least, present a few issues. One, that the maximum memory support would be 64 gigs and not 128 gigs until a BIOS update. Well, this is true of many boards. And I'm not going to install 64 gigs anytime soon, let alone 128, so that's not really a problem. Like, let's say the freeway is closed down, but I'm not going anywhere and have no plans to be on the freeway. It's really not a problem for me if the freeway is closed until I need to go somewhere, and ideally it'll be open by then. But let's move on to his second point. He says the Intel Z390 drivers have been updated twice since your motherboard's build date. However, this would be picked up by the Windows UEFI updates automatically, correct? He says, well, what really bothers me, and this is really none of my business, he says, is the source of the motherboard. Have you had the motherboard in your stock for nearly 2 years, or has someone sold you old stock? This is particularly important to new builders when they source their new motherboards, and this is from Michael in Scotland. Michael, the Z390M board was the initial choice I had for the Xenos build. And I've been struggling with the Xenos build, and it's still not complete, because every time I go to build it, I want it to have the best parts possible. It's a $2,000 computer case, the Xenos G3. You can look it up, XYNOS G3. And I have made numerous attempts over the last 4 years to try and build what I feel would be a worthy internal components to fit within a $2,000 case that has fairly restricted airflow and requires a micro ATX motherboard. So what I'm trying to do is put a real high-end chip, real high-end components, high-end RAM, high-end storage into a high-end case. And the process interferes with customers calling and saying, I need your help. And I have to push this aside, this pleasure project, just like the one behind me, until I have time to get back to it. Then I get back to it and I realize there's new parts available now. So this is the third attempt now to put modern parts into the Xenos build. And I had to stop previously with the Xenos build because we were missing some cables and I wasn't quite sure how the top fit. And then I got dragged into a whole bunch of other projects going on and I have not been able to revisit it. And since then, now a 10th gen series of Intel chips has come out and I really don't want to start over again. But when I was gonna, do this whole project finally and be done with it, I purchased the Gigabyte, this board here, the Z390M Gaming, to use in the Xenos. And then I talked with John Xenos, the creator, and I asked him what he was using in his build. I mean, obviously, the guy who makes the case probably has pretty nice taste. He knows what works well in it. And I decided maybe it would be best if I just replicated what he's done. And of course, he recommended a motherboard that was twice as much money, the ROG Asus, was it the Rage 7? I can't remember. It's in the parts list. Rage 11? I don't remember. Whatever the latest one was. And then I said, well, I'll figure out something. I'll do something with this board later. And then I was looking for a Z390 board for another project. And I said, oh, this board is a good price. I'll order it, not realizing I already had one. So I actually have another one of these still sitting in my back office. Now, I don't think it's been 2 years. I could be wrong, but I don't think the 300 series chips have been out for 2 years. But be that as it may, it's sat in my office for quite some time because unless it's a customer build, it's a passion project. It's a project for pleasure, for fun, and I have to prioritize the needs of my customers first and foremost. And then sometimes there's news items that are very time sensitive. I need to get the videos out about them right away, whereas a build is a build is a build. It can wait. And unfortunately, I am buried, just positively buried in little projects I want to do. And if I never took on another customer build, I would be busy with my own personal projects for the next year, honestly. Between the videos I want to make, doing some comparisons and testing, to just builds I want to do. I've got a year's worth of content to create. I may end up hiring somebody. It is getting to that point. Part of me doesn't want to do it, and part of me does. I was watching Jay's 2 Cents the other day talking about the computer build that Henry Cavill did, Superman, The Witcher, Henry Cavill. And because Jay has done builds for Post Malone and Terry Crews, people are like, hey, you should do a build for Superman. Well, Jay said if I did it, it would probably be a year before he'd get it. And I realized that some of you, like, why would it take a year, right? But you have to understand it's not like that's the only thing we have to do. Like, I totally get what he said there. There's a lot of balancing that has to occur of numerous projects. You can't just put all your eggs in one basket. It's not sustainable. So you generally will take on what you can do quickly, get that done, and then these long-term projects, you sort of dabble in them a little bit when you have time, and then, before you know it, 3-4 months has gone by, and it feels like the blink of an eye because we're kept so busy. That takes me to, since we're talking about that, a lot of people ask me to watch and review, do a reaction video to the PC build that The Verge did a couple of years ago. And I refuse to participate in that. I don't think it's smart to have a video that is poorly done be shared and viewed more times than a video that's well done and accurate. I find that to be an interesting, fascinating, and despicable part of the internet. And that is, I've said it before, the internet is just a big dumpster. It's just filled with people's garbage. And what's fascinating to me is sometimes in that garbage you can find treasure. One person's trash is another person's treasure. But when you pull out a piece of trash that is such a piece of trash that you want to say, look at this piece of trash and have that go viral, but the thing that's actually useful and helpful, that thing barely gets, views by comparison, that's a pretty messed up society that we live in. And the person who presented that, the gentleman, Stefan, who presented that video, I reached out to him, as I said I would, and he was kind enough to respond to me. And I want to share with you this conversation because I invited him on for an interview. As you can imagine, I'm sure he's absolutely sick of it. It's been 2 years now, and it's still, people won't let this thing, they won't move past it. It's still fresh on everybody's mind. It's brought up as a reference in numerous other uh, videos from other large content makers. I think even Jay mentioned it just recently. And, feel bad for this poor kid because, I think there's a part of corporate video production most people don't understand. And so I'm going to do my best now to try and put the pieces together for you. When I did work for Newegg, I thought initially it was like, wow, these Newegg videos are so bad. How can such a big multi-million-dollar corporation make such bad videos? It doesn't make any sense to me. So when I was offered the opportunity to make some content for them, I was on a bit of a fence, right? Part of me was like, well, if you do this, now you're going to be taking corporate money. Does that make you a sellout? Two, you have an opportunity to make content the way it should be from a big corporation. And ultimately, as you well know by now, I made videos for Newegg for about a year. If you search Carey Holzman in Newegg, you'll see you'll see all my content that I made. It's still up and available, and you can watch it today. And when Newegg made a video, they did it with professional Hollywood cameramen because you're a Hollywood camera guy, right? So if you work in Hollywood, you don't have a steady job. You work during the production of a movie, and then when production's over, you're out of work again. Or the production of a TV show, and the TV show perhaps gets canceled, or they're on a break, or in between seasons, you're out of work. So it's pretty easy to find audio boom operators, cameramen, and producers that have, they're not super high up, but they've done some stuff for TV, which is overkill for YouTube. The other thing Newegg did is they used old camera equipment, and they used knockoff batteries, and they were bumped up against, the studio was bumped up against the warehouse wall. So what would happen is while we're filming, camera batteries would die or memory cards would fill up. We've got 3 cameras running at all times. And sometimes, because we leave them running, sometimes one camera would die and then we'd have to stop everything, figure out why, fix it. Well, the other cameras are still running, by the way. We start up again, then the other camera dies because they were too cheap to buy decent batteries or replace the old cameras. And then we'd finally get it right, except because we were bumped up against the warehouse, you'd hear a forklift backing up or a bell ringing for union break or whatever it is they're doing over there. And then we would have to start the take over again, even though everything was perfect. They were very particular about their audio quality. But that's not really the concern. The concern was I thought I was going to step into Newegg and I was going to be able to walk down the aisles of the warehouse and say, give me this motherboard, give me that case, give me this hard drive, right? That's what I thought. That's not how it works. Unfortunately, and I don't know why, but that's not how it works. So what they do is they sell commercials. So let's say like Newegg and Asus have a nice relationship. Asus pays Newegg X amount of dollars to make a certain number of videos. And that's what pays for the cameraman, that's what pays for me, that's what pays for the whole production department. But they can only build parts that are being provided to them. They won't use any of their own parts. And this blew my mind because if you walk into Micro Center or Fry's Electronics, there's usually an unboxed product sitting on the shelf. They can't sell it. People have been touching it. I'm thinking like motherboards. If you went into Fry's Electronics, they'd have all these motherboards on display, and you could reach out and you could touch them. And that's just a write-off. You can never sell that motherboard. It's going to be damaged beyond all damage. It's bolted down to the counter so no one can steal it. And I thought, well, since Newegg is online only, it would be no big deal for us to take a motherboard. That's what they would do if they were a retail store anyway. Well, no, never, ever, not once, with no exception, were we ever allowed to use parts from Newegg. They had to be paid for by a sponsor. Now, I want to give you an idea how deep this goes. They were having a really hard time getting sponsors to provide motherboard, power supply, case, RAM, CPU. So I said, I'll tell you what, I've got a computer I've got to build for a customer. How about if I load all these parts up in my trunk and I take them over to the studio and we'll do the build. And then that way, you guys don't have to source the parts. So the parts I ordered from Newegg, I will put in my trunk and drive back over to Newegg. And they said, yeah, that's great and everything, but somebody has to pay for you. Somebody has to pay for the cameraman. Somebody has to pay for the editing, the production. So would you mind if we swapped out the solid state drive you have for one by SanDisk? I said, okay, well, that's fine. And they said, fine, then the project's on. And while we were filming the close-up of the parts, they had my Windows 10 installation CD, and they were slowly filming it, for a cutaway shot later. And I said, should we get like a Post-it note and cover up the product key? Because that doesn't belong to me. That's my customer's product. Oh, no, we're going to blur that out in editing. I said, okay. Well, they end up editing the video and posting it without asking me for any approval and fully exposing my customer's Windows 10 product key. And I threw a fit, if you can imagine. And the video had to come back down. And then it was corrected and then posted again. And I think there was another error in it. And it occurred to me that nobody is watching, nobody that works at Newegg in the production area is watching their videos. The editor is following instructions from the producer or the person who directs the department. And the video is sent to the manufacturer who paid for the video for approval, but wasn't sent to me for technical editing. Now, any professional news organization should have due diligence, and that is, there should be verification of any information they're publishing, whether it's a video or a news article. We don't want to publish hearsay. We don't want to get some gossipy neighbor, right? That's not what you want to read on the news, is what your gossipy neighbor says, at least not me. And Newegg hired no technical editor to double check my work. Now, you know me, I'm like, I don't need a technical editor, I'll technical edit myself. And I did, but that's not to say that there could have been errors that went through that I wasn't aware of. You see, hiring a technical editor would cost more money. So what I saw happen to Stefan when I saw that video, knowing what I know, I said to myself, this guy was set up to fail. The Verge set him up to fail. More than likely. More than likely, this is not what he wanted to do. More than likely, they hired no technical editor. Well, clearly, they hired no technical editor. The video at that time was sponsored by Capital One, and hiring the technical editor would have eaten into their profit margin. When I asked Newegg why they published a video without having me look at it, they said they were required to. That the contract with, in this case, SanDisk, stated that the video would be published on a certain date and therefore had to be published on a certain date, which is preposterous. I understand you can't have an open-ended contract that says we'll make a video and it'll just get done whenever, but there's got to be some grace period in there to say we'll make the best effort to publish by this date in order to ensure that it reaches our mandated quality levels. And without anybody watching the videos they were producing and getting approval from the manufacturers to publish, over and over and over again, I would have the same fight with Newegg where I would absolutely require them to take the video down because it was making me look like an idiot. You understand? If Stefan had more control over that video edit, it would have been completely different. But there was also a publishing deadline where it was going to get published one way or the other. And there were parts he had to use that he didn't have any choice over. They were just like, here's the parts you're going to use. And that happens to me too. Carey, why did you pair this CPU with that video card? It doesn't make any sense. You don't understand the way corporate video production works. That's the video card we can get. That's the one paying for it. We have to use it. And you need to be aware of this when you're watching corporate paid for videos because there's deadlines, there is budgets, and the people in charge generally have no interest in the production at all. We had an excellent editor at Newegg. This kid was good. He was really good, but he wasn't a computer builder. You know, he needed instruction. And there were videos and edits that I did at Newegg that were so bad that I threatened that I would never make a video for them again if they published it. Now imagine you're a computer enthusiast, you work as a tech journalist, and you have an opportunity to do a computer build video, something you enjoy doing, and you're asked to do it for not just like a guy in his kitchen, but a giant, like CNN owned, I think they're owned by CNN, news organization, which has already hundreds of thousands, if not millions of followers, right? So you're going to instantly have like if you do it, if you made a video that bad, who'd see it? So the video, it turned out really bad. There was a lot of bad information in it, a lot of misunderstanding, even some phrasing. When Stefan puts down some zip ties and he says, and you're going to need some tweezers, he wasn't calling the zip ties tweezers. He was suggesting that you would use tweezers to pull on the zip ties, you know, to tighten them. But his phrasing, and again, this is all stuff that could have been addressed with a technical editor, and there's no shortage of technical editors. And then there was a deadline, right? So if Capital One's paying for this video, then they're promised a video by a certain date, so they published it. Then the person in charge of publishing at The Verge defended his journalist, despite all of the criticism, until the criticism went to Capital One for sponsoring it, and Capital One then pulled their sponsorship, and then The Verge fired Stefan and pulled the video down, and then tried to threaten people who had published reaction videos or any of the content that The Verge had created in an attempt to remove this blemish from their reputation, completely ignoring the fact that they had no due diligence and Stefan was just the presenter, you understand? And so he's representing The Verge, but he's getting the brunt of all the criticism. And then people write articles about how this is racism, and that if it was, you know, that the community of PC building is mostly white people. I don't know why that is. I have no idea. But at no point have I ever met a nerd that was a racist. But I think racists did jump in, you know, on the criticism just because they're racist. But I don't think nerds in general are like they're like Mr. Spock from Star Trek. You know, we're interested in facts. We don't really care. And I'm certain if I had done that video, or if anybody had done that video, the criticism would have been the same. But the criticism needs to go to The Verge, not to the presenter, and I can't stress that enough. I've been through this with Newegg. The last video I did for Newegg, they asked me to do a series of 2-minute quick videos on what computer parts were. Like, what's a motherboard in 2 minutes or less? What's a CPU? And we started with explain what a CPU is in 2 minutes. And I spent at least 6 hours with a full camera crew trying to explain what a CPU is and I could not do it in under 2 minutes. I didn't know where to stop. In other words, a CPU is a pretty complex piece of equipment, and I think it's doing a disservice to the viewer to try to oversimplify it because it leaves too much left unsaid, and it's going to leave a false impression of the complexity and the total job that a CPU is responsible for handling. And I was getting angry. I was really getting angry. I felt like I would start the video, I'd start explaining it, and then I would just keep going and going, and I'm like, oh, we're already, they give me the sign. They're like, we're 5 minutes into this, Carey. You're well over. And I kept thinking about it and thinking about it and thinking about it. I'm like, I can't do it. Can't do it. I said, let me see what the script says. Newegg didn't like to do anything without a script. And I said to Newegg, every computer build is different. If we don't have a script, rather, the only way we can make a script is we have to build the system twice. We need to build it once off camera, and we can write the script, and then we can build it again. Well, I've already explained how hard it was for Newegg to get parts. That was never going to happen. So as a formality, whoever was directing would write a script that would just please the higher-ups so that we can do what we needed to do. Now, I really enjoyed working with this director. I think he's a super cool guy, but I'm pretty sure he never wants to speak to me again after what happened. So I'm steaming, I'm fuming, because I'm being asked to do something I just don't think it's possible. It wasn't my idea. And I said, okay, so I sat down and I privately with this guy and I said, let me see the script. And I look at the script and I go, did you just copy this off Wikipedia? What is a CPU? And he's very offended. He says, no, I absolutely did not. I read Wikipedia and then I phrased it in my own, those are my own words. I said, do you have any idea how offensive this is? He's like, you don't have to be a computer technician to know what a CPU is. I go, clearly you don't. As I can tell from reading this, that you really don't understand the depth of what you're talking about, and you had no business writing it. And he's like, excuse me? I said, how would you like it if I wrote a script on how to be a director in under 2 minutes without any experience directing? I'm going to tell people how to do your job in under 2 minutes, and the way I'm going to do it is I'm going to read a Wikipedia article and then put it in my own words. And he just kind of threw his hands up. I said, look, I don't know how to do this. I don't think it can be done. I can't do it. And I really want to have fun. I came here to make videos for fun. Can we just go and have some fun and do this and have some fun? And I'm pretty sure that was the nail in the coffin, because we tried a few more attempts and I said, I can't do it. And they said, apparently there's a rule. If the talent, they call it talent in Hollywood, if the talent says it's done, then the whole crew's done. We're done. That's it. We can't go any further. Wish I'd have known that 6 hours ago, because we could have changed and done something else. But instead, just kept repeating the same thing over and over. So I went to the head of the department and I said, I have never in my life made videos this bad, ever. Don't you dare release any of these videos. And she says, well, don't you trust me? I said, if I didn't trust you, I wouldn't be here right now. But you have released content without my approval before, and I'm telling you right now, this is the worst work I have ever done, and what you're asking me to do is unreasonable. And if people can just go to Wikipedia and read this stuff anyway, why aren't we doing anything original? Why are we just doing what's already been done when the content already exists? I would have these arguments constantly. Well, our audience doesn't like this. I go, I don't care what your audience likes or doesn't like. I'm not here to make videos for the audience you have. I want to make videos for the audience you don't yet have, right? You don't need to preach to the choir. They're already there. Let's go attract some new folks and bring them in. If you keep doing the same thing, your audience isn't going to grow. You have to expand that. You can't just pander to them constantly. So there were these constant misunderstandings. Things like, well, we see our average watch time is 8 minutes. Therefore, we need to make videos that are 8 minutes long. And I'm just like, no, this is not TV. This is YouTube. If you make videos that are 8 minutes long, then your average view time is going to be 3 minutes, 4 minutes. So then you make videos that are 3 or 4 minutes long, and then your average watch time will be a minute. And you just downward spiral until you're not making videos anymore. You want to increase your watch time, you need to increase the length of the video. That's how it works. But I'm not the boss. I'm not in charge of the department. And the people in charge don't know anything about computers. They're there to do a job, which is video production. Whether they're selling something on QVC or they're making a computer how-to video, it's just another video production job. That's the way it's seen. And that's why in the corporate world, some of these videos are the worst you'll ever see, despite the big budgets and despite the fact that Newegg has this big warehouse with every part you could ever have a wet dream about having. We're not allowed to use any of them. It's insanity, absolute insanity. So getting back to Stefan, I wrote it to Stefan and I said, I bet you're smarter than you appeared to be on that video. I bet The Verge set you up to fail. I bet there were deadlines and equipment that you were required to use that you didn't necessarily want to use, but you didn't have a choice. Anyway, Stefan wrote me back, and let me read to you what he wrote. He gave me permission to share what he wrote with the audience, because I invited him to come on and maybe do something with me. He could even do like a regular stint here, do videos, do reviews. He says, I'm not necessarily interested in doing an interview per se. However, I completely agree with the first half of your message. Well, contractually, I'm not allowed to disclose everything. I can say that I was rushed, interrupted, and not given complete creative control of my work. And I never got to see the video until 48 hours before it was published. I do, in fact, plan on making another PC video, and I have a sponsor for it. But with COVID and my own schedule, that kind of got sidetracked. What strikes me as odd is that the audience never seems to understand that that specific PC powered my desk at work at The Verge for nearly the entirety of my time there. The, quote, thermal paste PC is responsible for publishing The Verge's first Android and iOS guides. I'm not angry at anyone except the racists. They're out there, so screw them. But I think it's time to move on. And since working at The Verge, I've done important work for both CNN and IBM. And so believe me, I'm not hinging my future on the harassment from new Twitter accounts or dedicated harassment subreddits. You see, he's very well spoken. He's a very nice person. He's very clear when he speaks. And I totally understand how this could have gone awry. It is an object of frustration that the audience has no idea what's happening behind the scenes. But I can tell you this much. If you're watching a video produced by a large company, whether that's Newegg or The Verge, it's quite possible that there's no technical editor in order to save money. And it's quite possible the people working on the video have no interest in computers whatsoever apart from the presenter themselves. And that leads to some of the worst content you'll ever see coming from some of the most reputable sources you would think would be reputable in their content. And that's exactly how it happens. And I can tell you firsthand countless stories over and over and over again regarding my value system in the quality and the content of my videos and the value system of production at Newegg at that time. After that fiasco where, they were trying to get me to explain what a CPU was in 2 minutes or less, we wasted an entire day. I still got paid. The camera crew still got paid. Content never got made. As a result, or as the straw that broke the camel's, I don't know exactly what the series of events were, but everybody in that department was shortly thereafter, except for the editor, all let go, and I was never called back or contacted again by Newegg. When I asked for a new Windows 10, since they exposed my product key for my customer, they told me they'd get it to me. They never did. When the person who took over the department, I reached out to them and said, "Hi, my name's Carey Holzman. I don't know I was making videos for you guys. I don't know if you're still interested in using me or not, but I'm still interested in doing them. Also, you guys exposed my product key. I was supposed to be given a replacement copy of Windows 10 Home. Nobody has done that. And he said, oh, my apologies. This was at the time during the Consumer Electronics Show last year. He said, when I get back to the office, I'll take care of it. And that was the last communication I've had from Newegg. Well over a year and a half has passed. So, something that minor, something so petty from a company so big, and you wonder, how is this possible? Even I can afford to go pay for a copy of Windows 10 to replace for a customer if I were to accidentally expose a product key. I don't have anywhere near the bank account that Newegg has. But we run into people in positions that don't fully see their jobs through, or they're in the job, in my opinion, for the wrong reason. They're in it for a paycheck. They're not in it because they're passionate about what they're doing. And there's a selfishness of just, I'm going to take care of me and nobody else. And it permeates corporate America very badly. There's a certain kind of personality that works in corporate America that I was not prepared for. I was always taught if you work harder, you'll move ahead. What I didn't realize was there are people who have figured out you don't have to work any harder. You just have to make others around you look worse. That never occurred to me. It never occurred to me that all you have to do is just make everybody around you look bad. And by default, then you don't have to work any harder. And the best example I can give to you was I was working at a company and I was browsing the computer news or something at my desk. And the boss came up, looked over my shoulder, looked at what was on my screen, and then looked at me and said, I need to talk to you. Brought me over into his cubicle and said, somebody says you've just been goofing off all day today, just browsing the web and not working. I said, well, who said that? He goes, well, it doesn't matter right now. He goes, what are you working on? I said, well, I was on a break. He goes, sure you were. I go, look, there's people that smoke cigarettes. They go out every 10 minutes, 10 minutes every hour to go smoke a cigarette. I get two 15-minute breaks, one 15-minute break in the first 4 hours, then there's lunch, and then I get another 15-minute break somewhere in that second 4 hours. And I take the break when I can. I said, I have two questions for you, though. Number one, are any of my projects behind? Am I off schedule? Is everything I was assigned to do being done on time? He says, yes. I said, okay. Second thing I need to know is, who has got so much time on their hands? Because I'm busy working. As you can see, I'm on schedule. The way I'm on schedule is I'm busting my butt. I don't have time to walk around the office to see who's doing what. Oh, what's Jim doing? Is Jim just browsing the web and not working? I don't have time for that. So what I want to know from you is, the person who said I wasn't working, what were they doing today? What gives them so much free time that they can just watch me all day to see what I'm doing? And then the nail in the coffin here was, you're not my boss. I'm a contractor. You cannot tell me when to show up. You can't tell me when to leave. You can't tell me my lunch hour. I am not your employee. I don't get any of the benefits that your employees get. I don't get the pay your employees get. And I don't work for you. I work for a contractor. So if you have any issues with me in the future, take it to the boss that I report to, the people who write my check. That's the contracting agency, because what you're doing is a violation of Internal Revenue Service law, and that you're treating me as an employee, but you're not paying me as an employee or giving me the benefits of an employee. And the IRS doesn't really care about employee equality. They care that they're collecting the revenue they should be getting. And so if you're going to treat me as an employee, I'll just let the IRS know, and then we'll let that handle that. So you can see I just make friends everywhere I go. I was livid. That never happened again. That never, ever happened again. But you've got to remember, in corporate America, there are people that like to game the system in any way they can to make others look bad in order for them to move up. And it's everywhere in corporate America. Nothing in school prepared me for that. I was totally blindsided by it. So, of course, when I saw the video from The Verge, I didn't want to jump on the bandwagon and make fun of this guy, because this guy wasn't in his kitchen using his cell phone to make a video, right? That would be a different story. This was supposed to be coming from a reputable news organization who is supposed to do due diligence and fact check everything before publishing. And if there's any blame to be had, it's the people who made those decisions at The Verge. And it's got to make you question, how many other times has The Verge published any content without fact checking it? Is this normal? Is this just another day at The Verge? Is this the way they work? Publish first, don't worry about verifying it? I don't know. But it's got to make you wonder, can you trust The Verge at all for any information, knowing that this is acceptable to them? And to take out any sort of nastiness towards Stefan, who is simply the presenter, is misguided. In my opinion, Stefan was set up to fail. That is not the way professional video production should ever be done. In video production, I was just watching, Josh Gad has a YouTube series where he's inviting actors on from classic 1980s movies to reenact some of the lines, and he's bringing the cast like from The Goonies, or he did Back to the Future. He brought back Michael J. Fox, Christopher Lloyd, Bob Zemeckis, the director and writer, as well as Alan Silvestri, the composer. And Bob Zemeckis was saying that the head of the studio didn't like the name Back to the Future. He said, it doesn't make any sense. What does that even mean? And he sent a memo, said that I've got the title of the movie fixed. It'll be called, I don't know, The Men from Pluto or something like that. And then their script changes to so the title will work. And they were, the production crew was looking at each other, and they decided, they wrote a letter back that said, thank you for the joke. That was hilarious. And and the guy never backtracked and said, no, it wasn't a joke. I thought that was so there's this way that you can play this corporate game. And so instead of arguing with the guy about how stupid his idea was, they just sent him a letter saying, hey, that was a great joke. We all laughed hilariously, wonderfully funny. Thank you so much. And then the guy just, never talked about it ever again. So one of the reasons I'm self-employed is I just don't have to deal with this bureaucratic nonsense, right? And I was really nice for Stefan to email me back. He didn't have to. I can imagine he's probably heard so much of this nonstop. Was it ever going to go away? That poor guy. That poor guy. So anyway, look, man, please don't jump on the bandwagon with this stuff, especially not in corporate situations. Go after the corporation. A couple other emails here. This one comes from Jason. Jason says, hi, Carey. I purchased a PC case that I want you to review and build in one of your live streams. It's for you to use afterwards for the channel. I just recently built a PC using this case, and it was a really nice case to build in my opinion. This is from Jason Cordry. He says, P.S. I look forward to hearing your opinion on the case. It's truly a budget case. It should arrive at your place at the end of the month. Okay, that's weird. I will ask that you guys reach out to me before you send me anything, because I'm running out of room here. And as I mentioned, I've got a ton of projects for at least a year, just my own personal projects, plus the customer work. So while I appreciate your support and enthusiasm for the channel, what could really help me more is, instead of sending the case through Amazon, you could have sent whatever that case cost as an Amazon gift card, and I can utilize it for things I need for current and ongoing projects. That being said, my deepest heartfelt thanks and appreciation for those of you thinking of me. But sometimes I end up getting stuff and I don't know what to do with it. And speaking of that, let's talk about some of the things I've received recently. This couple of things arrived here, and I don't know, it might be from Tom Jackson. I'm not sure though. I had mentioned in a previous video that I received these lights I don't know, was it Tom that sent them? I can't even keep straight now who's sending me what because they're not including a little gift notification. When you purchase something on Amazon, there's an option that click a box that says this is a gift. If you don't check that box, the package arrives as if I've ordered it myself. There's no receipt. There's nothing in it to identify who it's from. So I received a package of these magnetic lights, and I had mentioned I guess they must take batteries, and you got to get a screwdriver to. I mean, anything that takes batteries shouldn't require a screwdriver. That's just ridiculous. It should have an easy to remove panel to access the batteries. So I haven't had time to get a screwdriver and take these things literally apart so I can put batteries in. And I guess somebody misinterpreted that, thinking I needed batteries, and sent me a bunch of AAA batteries from Amazon. Again, there's no notification in the package. I don't know what's going on. I just opened the package. I got battery. Who sent these and why? And then I have to think about it. Oh, maybe it's for those lights. Maybe the person who sent me the lights is the same person who sent me the batteries. I don't know. Was it Tom Jackson? That's my guess. I don't know. Thank you. I appreciate it. I'm just confused. Then, and this is an unusual one, I was sent this power supply. It seems kind of like a random thing for somebody to send. And I think I have an email. Once again, it didn't say who it was from. No, no notification or receipt. So if you're getting like 100 emails a day, plus YouTube comments, plus Facebook messages, plus Twitter responses, you can imagine that I can forget very easily what I read yesterday, right? So I had to dig through my email, and I found that John Panarelli had contributed this. He says, here's a power supply for you. John's in Colorado. Now, John, you'll notice I don't use Corsair power supplies anymore. I've had a disproportionate number of power supplies from Corsair require warranty work. And while Corsair fulfilled the warranty requests, I'd rather not have the power supply die to begin with. So I've been strictly using EVGA. Now, that being said, this is also a very low wattage power supply. So something like this will be good for maybe one of the kids at Hope computers or something for testing. And I appreciate, again, the thought. However, if you would have said, hey, can I send you a power supply? Well, actually, I probably would have said, okay. I mean, it's not that it's a terrible thing, but I would not use this on a customer's build. I wouldn't want to have to support it because of the sheer number of bad Corsair power supplies. Based on, like, if I install 10 Corsair power supplies, 3 or 4 of them within the first 18 months are going to need to be replaced. If I do EVGA, 1 out of maybe 25 goes bad in the same period of time. That's been my anecdotal experience. So I don't, I'm kind of walking a fine line because I don't want to sound like I'm ungrateful. But at the same time, I do wish people would talk to me a bit more instead of surprising me with gifts. Like, for example, here's a ProTech toolkit. So, again, was this Tom Jackson that sent this? I don't know who sent it. There's no gift receipt. And this seems more for devices that require spudgers and things to open, and I have no doubt there will come a day where I will use this on a project at some point, but this will not be a regular part of my routine for a number of reasons. It's solving a problem I don't have. So while it was a thoughtful thing to send to me, again, my office is now stacked, and I have to figure out an organization system so I can find it when I need it, if I need it. And I would much rather that you guys supported the channel in other ways, though your thoughtfulness and your enthusiasm is deeply, deeply appreciated. We just need to show it another way because I'm getting buried in stuff. So here's another example. Let me go back to my email. A gentleman named David Price watched one of my videos on building the 8-year build and built it. And he was so excited he wanted to share his story with me about how my video helped him and how the system works great. And he didn't get any response, so he tried emailing me again, and then he tried calling me, and he really made a big effort to get a hold of me. And I'm just trying to help everybody, and oh yeah, I remember that guy sent an email, and I was going to answer it, but that was like 2 days ago, and I can't find it. It's buried under 200. It's in there somewhere. I could search for his name. I can't remember his name. Anyway, so he ends up getting a hold of me. I called him back. He left a voicemail, and I called him back. And he said, I wanted to show my appreciation by sending you something. I was, well, that's not necessary. He goes, no, I insist. I insist. Okay, what's your address? I give him my address. And then here's what he sent. I've got some Jane's Kazoo spices, which look delicious, and I can't wait. I can't wait to try these. Now this is great. I've got room in the cabinet for spices, and I enjoy cooking, and I'm looking very forward to trying these, and I appreciate it. It's not computer related, so we're good. We're off to a good start. Then he sent me some peanut butter dog treats for the dogs. Very kind to think of the dogs. And then he said, I want to send you this thing that I think you will find useful, but he wouldn't tell me what it was. And what it is a power supply tester. And well, this converts your power supply so that you have the voltages right across the line here that you can run a meter on. And it's right here. But because he's a new viewer, and he wanted to surprise me, he wouldn't tell me what it was, because I would have told him, don't send it. He then watched a video where I explained it doesn't make any sense to spend the time to test a power supply when a new power supply is $40. Just keep a new power supply as part of your testing equipment, and you can much more quickly determine if you've got a bad power supply. Because sometimes power supplies can be a little tricky to diagnose regarding how much of a load they get put on them, and sometimes problems are intermittent. So he says, well, look, maybe someday you'll have a use for it. So again, we've got the heart in the right spot. The enthusiasm is there. They want to give back. I think it's amazing. That's from David. David, thank you. I want you to know that, the thoughtfulness means a lot to me. But just writing and sharing your story, and if you want to share some pictures, that is equal to sending me anything. And if you want to support the channel, please do so with Super Chat or PayPal or an Amazon gift card. Amazon gift card's the best because it doesn't take any percentage of your money. And I'm probably going to spend it at Amazon anyway, because that's where I get the majority of my parts. And because of that, as I mentioned, I've got projects for the next year. That's because I stocked up on a bunch of stuff. I would never normally do that. Today, for example, listen very carefully. The Samsung 970 EVO Plus 2 terabyte drive is $349.99. Now, I've been complaining that drive has been listed on Amazon for the mid $400, like $440, $430, $450, $460. And the retail the manufacturer's suggested retail price on that drive is $399.99. So when that drive went back down to its normal $399.99 price, I bought like 4 of them, right? That's 1,200. No, how much is that? 4, 8, 60. No, I didn't buy 4. I bought 3. I bought $1,200 worth of drives. Today, those drives are same exact drives, $349.99, $50 less. Today. Now, is it going to be that way tomorrow? Are they going to sell out? I don't know. That's in Amazon US, just so you know, Amazon.com. That's a great deal. Great deal. And if somebody had sent $20 in an Amazon gift card and somebody sent $50 as an Amazon gift card, and whatever this stuff costs that you guys sent, maybe I'd have enough on gift cards that I could afford to buy a few more of those Samsung drives, but I don't right now. And it's a deal I have to let go. I've already got 3 in inventory anyway, but at that price, want to grab more. I'll use them. But regardless of that, take advantage of that deal. I mean, that's a really good deal, $349.99. And so thank you to David. I've got a couple more emails I'm going to get through. Alien Young said you should use the items as a giveaway. I don't like regifting. I really don't like regifting. I'd rather find somebody who genuinely needs it and offer it to them rather than just randomly give it away. Um, Getting to more of the emails. This comes from Gersten. Gersten says, "My dear Carey, I just wanted to let you know that I was watching the internet with a friend a few months ago, and I saw a YouTube video in which you built a desktop PC with Mr. Mitch Morrison." I know that guy. He says, "I have never had a computer of my own before and did not have an internet feed into my bungalow, but I was impressed by what the two of you did and decided to have a go at building one. Late in life though it may be, age is not a barrier with me. As I am 85 years old, pretty well of the recent technological development has passed me by, so I discussed it with a friend who was also elderly, and I eventually decided to copy exactly what you and Mitch did and gave it a go. Now, we made two changes to your specifications. Firstly, I decided to purchase a slightly larger Corsair case, as elderly fingers are not as flexible as they were years ago, and I thought that a bit more room inside the case above the motherboard would be useful in order to make power connection above the processor easier. Secondly, we decided to purchase the Wi-Fi version of that gigabyte board, as my neighbor has offered to let me piggyback off his Wi-Fi router, which is next door. My friend was able to buy all the parts through the Amazon account, his Amazon account. The build took a few days, as I had to carefully look at all the components before installation to make sure I understood what I was doing. Anyway, at last it was ready to switch on, and to my amazement, it worked. Just like you said, the first time it turned on and off a few times, but eventually it settled down and asked for an operating system. My friend had an old copy of Windows 7 Professional, so we were able to use his old Windows 7 license number to authenticate a copy of Windows 10 Professional, which was downloaded just like you describe in your videos. It worked a treat, and now the computer is fully authenticated and activated as a Windows 10 Pro machine. Now that I can use the web as often as I want, I continue to be amazed what a huge resource it is, which is now available to us, particularly us oldies who've never experienced it before. Thank you so much for all of your care and attention to the details in your videos. It worked a treat, and I will forever be grateful. Incidentally, Carey, I live in Carey Close, Wareham in southern England. A wonderful coincidence? Yeah, Carey Close. That's what it's called, C-A-R-E-Y. Carey Close. He says, I've enclosed a couple of pictures my friend took of the build. My friend had to move the computer out of my kitchen. Once it was complete, it was a bit too heavy for me to move safely, and I am delighted with it. With grateful thanks, yours sincerely. It says, Jenny Holsberg. Is it from Jenny? P.S. He says, I like, or she, I don't know, I like the dogs. Give them a pat or two from me. And two, my friend sent a $15 donation from me via PayPal. Use it as you wish. Well, thank you so much. See, that's better than anything somebody can mail me. Well, apart from maybe a case full of crisps. But I'm just saying that's far more valuable to me. So thank you for taking the time to write it. And I really need to make a day where I just go through emails, because a lot of them I simply don't have time to answer, or I just quickly throw an answer to give them a direction to chase down because I'm trying to do technical support for existing clients, as well as, I've got a number of videos sitting in editing and 8 million things going on at the same time. What somebody did pretty creatively in order to get my attention to get some support was they sent me $100 and said, my name is Tani, and I always watch your video in your live stream, and I always learn something new from your videos. And I'm emailing you today for business, and this will be a little different. Because I'm overseas, you won't be able to do it for me, but I trust your opinion. He says, a few years back, I bought a server for my small company, and we used it maybe 10 hours, and then didn't need it and had it off, and it's been off for a few years. We've since closed the company, and I have the server sitting here at my house. And the other day I wanted to use it, but it's running Windows Server, which I don't like. He says, I went online to look for things to upgrade the server, and I thought I better ask for your opinion before I do anything or spend any money. So please let me know what you would charge me for your valuable opinion. And he says, English is my second language, and I'm sorry for any grammar or spelling mistakes, of which I've not found any, by the way. His English is better than mine. What he's got is an HP ML350 G6. It's the E5620, and it's got a Xeon E5620 processor, and it's got another socket for another CPU that's empty. He's got two RAM modules that are 4 gigs each. They're PC3 10600R for a total of 8 gigs of RAM. Right, so we've got a Xeon E5620 with 8 gigs of RAM. He's got 3 hard drives that are 300 gig, 15,000 RPM SAS drives, totaling 900 gigs, and the current power supply is just 460 watts. Here's his questions, and feel free to participate in the chat room with your answers. It says, 1, can I use Windows 10 Pro? Since I'm not going to be using it as a server, will I face any driver issues if I change to Windows 10 Pro? I don't think so. You should be able to wipe that out completely, and you probably have a RAID array with 300 gig drives, which is weird. I would pull 2 of the drives. I would have just the one drive, remove the RAID array configuration from the drive. You may need to go into BIOS and remove it, and then install Windows 10 as you would always see me install it. And you don't have to physically remove the drives, but I would unplug the power and data cables off 2 of those SAS drives. His second question is, should I upgrade and add a second processor? Upgrade to the Xeon 5675 or X5670. Will it work? Don't waste your money. You won't need that second processor. Regardless if it works or not, you won't need it. That's for server use. He's asking about RAM. The registered RAM I can do up to 192 gigs, and the other is only up to 48 gigs. I don't know what that means, but I was planning on doing 64 gigs, 32 gigs for each processor. Again, it doesn't work that way, and it's way overkill. If you want to use this for home use, 8 gigs, what you have now is fine. I wouldn't change it. 4, graphics card. I need some modern graphics so I can connect it to a big monitor or TV. No, you should still be able to do that regardless. Any graphics card with an HDMI output is all you need. TVs are not computer monitors. They generally have a resolution of either 1080 or of 4K. As long as you want to just be at 1080, which is what I recommend, 4K, everything gets really, really tiny. I would say whatever graphics card you've got now is probably going to work fine. Otherwise, you can just buy like we did for Mike Smith. We got him a 1650, GTX 1650, because he didn't need it for gaming. He needed it for having 3 monitors hooked up at the same time. It's way overkill for that, but for under $200, something you could grow into. There's also cheaper alternatives. There's even USB devices that can give you a monitor output. But that being said, you should be able to use whatever card you've got now and buy an adapter to convert it to HDMI if it's not already HDMI, so you can plug it into the back of a TV. He's talking about hard drives. He says, I know I need an SSD, but I have no idea about this SAS thing, and if I remove them, can I just put a new SSD in the same place of the current hard drive? There are 8 slots for hard drives, 3 are used and 5 are empty. Do you think I should use RAID? I don't know what RAID is, but I'm learning, and I say this because I don't want you to think I know what I'm talking about. I'm not an IT person, but I can learn fast. I usually put on your videos and follow them. I upgraded 4 family laptops to SSDs and RAM with Windows 10, and that's all I can do. At this point, right now, you need to verify if that motherboard supports SATA. You're not going to want to use SAS. Serial attached SCSI is typically used on servers. Because you've already got it, and it looks like you're looking to save some money, and perhaps parts are harder to get or more expensive where you live, I can understand that you're trying to, make the most out of what you have. Without getting into a full tutorial, I would say use what you've got. Just disconnect the other two drives and make sure everything works okay on Windows 10 with the SAS drive attached. And don't use RAID at all for any circumstance under any reason, because you're just not there yet with um, your level of experience and education. Furthermore, it won't benefit you at all, other than gaining the experience and education, which then will do you no good once you have, because you're not in that line of work. So I would say just use what you've got. And then if it all works okay and you want to upgrade to a solid state drive, well, then you can, assuming the board has a SATA connection, completely remove the SAS drives altogether. Get rid of them, don't use them, and stick with SATA like a regular consumer motherboard would have. And of course, I'm welcoming all other opinions in the chat room. So if you're watching the video, please take note to the chat room and the comments that people are making, because my opinions are just opinions. I'm thinking in terms of what's going to be the least trouble, least expensive, most painless way to get you a system up and running that'll be reliable with no unexpected issues. When we start introducing new RAM and other new parts, we can run into compatibility issues or fitment issues. And I would rather avoid that and just get the thing up and running. Once it's up and running, then I would advise you, if you wanted to improve upon it, to then do one thing at a time. So if things stop working, you know exactly where to go to diagnose and repair it. What else does he say? Number 6, he goes, the server model comes with 3 power supplies. It's got a 460 watt, a 750 watt, and a 1200 watt. Now the model I have is the 460 watt. If I were to change the processor and add a new graphics card and more RAM, should I also change the power supply? Well, again, I'm going to go back to what I've already said, and that is leave it all alone as much as possible to ensure that it will work with Windows 10 without any driver issues. And 460 watts, especially if we're talking about a low-end graphics card like a 1650, is still plenty for that. I would not introduce any new parts to that machine until you verify that the machine will run Windows 10. And if it's running Windows 10 quickly enough, responsively, and when you click, you're not waiting for things, things are happening pretty quick, then there's nothing more to do. You're trying to solve problems you're imagining you may have. You're imagining that 8 gigs of RAM isn't enough. You're imagining your drives aren't good enough. You're imagining your power supply is not good enough. But that's all in your imagination. So let's find out for certain what you have, and then we can decide how to improve it, if it needs improvement at all, once you've established it as a working Windows 10, and you get the server OS off of it. What's he going to use the computer for? He says, my use for this PC will be for storage and display of family videos and pictures in the house. This PC will not be connected to the internet. Nowadays, every time we travel, we take a lot of pictures. And keeping the pictures in the phone is not a good idea, so I want to transfer all the pictures and the videos to this new PC. I will send a second email with pictures of the server, and I've sent $100 to you for your time to address all of my questions. So this is just one email of many I get like this. People, I feel bad. Someone might write 2 or 3 pages and I don't have time to read it. It's just like, I'm sorry, you're not my customer. I don't know who you are. And I've got people who are paying me, waiting for me, and I don't have time. So I feel bad that somebody just, didn't even so much as introduce themselves to me and say hello. They just slam me with, a novel that they've taken their time to write, not realizing that I don't have that much time. And so Danny here has become a customer by submitting money, and now I'm obligated to answer his question. And I thought, what better way to answer it than to just make a video and also offer the opportunity for other people to chime in. Given the way you're going to use this computer, I think it's going to be awfully loud and consume a lot of power, a lot of electricity, just for pictures and videos, which I think, to me, I wouldn't recommend, because these things do fail, and it's not a backup. You can purchase something like Google Drive or online storage like Dropbox to upload these files, but he's also saying he's not going to use internet on it. There are picture frames you can buy now that are basically art. You hang it on the wall. You load up an SD card or a USB stick with your pictures and your videos. You hang it on the wall like a picture, except it plugs into the wall for power. And you can have your videos and your pictures showing on the wall just like a painting. You search Amazon or just Google search for these, I forget what they're called, they've got a name, but they're um, art displays. I'll think of the word. I'm sure somebody in chat will help me out here. But it's basically like any other painting or hanging of the wall. And they come in different sizes. A lot of times these were popular about 10 years ago when people would sit them on their desk and you would have it cycle through your favorite photos. They've gotten so much better now. And of course, the bigger it is, the more expensive it is. But when you consider what you're going to spend, if you were going to change power supply and add RAM and pay for Windows and buy an SSD, and it's going to be loud. Server power supplies are generally pretty loud. I don't know that that's a good solution, in my opinion, for that purpose. So if we started with that statement, if you said I have an old server, and the reason I want to use it is the storage and display of family pictures and videos, you could have stopped your email right there. You didn't need to go into all your questions because I would have stopped you and said, you're trying to use a school bus to drive yourself all by yourself wherever it is you need to go. So you've got this giant gas eating, gas guzzling, big, capacious vehicle when you could be in a little smart car, more designed to move one person without any equipment or anything. It was just you and nothing else. Not that you couldn't use the bus. It's hard to park and it's going to eat gas and it's going to be loud and it's going to be stinky, the exhaust. So I don't know that's the right solution, though you can use a school bus to run all your errands all by yourself. Doesn't mean that you should. So that's my opinion on that. Thank you for the contribution and support to the channel, and let me know what you decide to do. And then I think I had one more email. One more? Or no, I think that might be all of them now. A couple of contributions have come in while I've been talking. Looks like I'm having some upload issues today. I'm just noticing OBS is reporting a lot of dropped frames, so hopefully we're going out okay. I was sort of hesitating, waiting for it to recover. It looks like it's starting to recover now. Yeah, we're getting some weird pauses and hesitations. I'm going to try and work through it. Bear with me. I still see a pretty good upload speed, but OBS is still. There we go. Now it's in green. Now we're good. So I want to give a shout out to everybody who's contributed here while I've been talking. Paul O'Brien with a €1 contribution. John Blue Nose Studley with a £2 contribution. David Austin has contributed $50. Wow, very nice. David says, I am a sellout. What does that mean? I don't get it. Thank you for the very generous contribution, David, but please explain, why are you a sellout? OG Gaming has contributed $20. He says, what's those little bags doing in the computer I just got here? Watch the video, the previous video I explained. That's from a viewer named Rick Hubbard in England, mailed me a Corsair 200R case and stuffed it with Walker's Smoky Bacon Crisps. They're my favorite potato chip, and they're available in London, in England, pretty much. So it's a special treat when I can get them here in the United States. OG Gaming with another $20 contribution said, what's going on? I just got here. Remember, you can always rewind these videos, these live videos. You can rewind them just like any other video while it's live. Thank you for those contributions. Majestic White Tiger contributed $5 New Zealand dollars. He says, thank you, Carey, for making these shows. Here's $5 all the way from New Zealand to have yourself a Coke. Well, thank you for that. And you're certainly not alone. We have a number of other viewers also are Kiwis. And thanks for for joining us today. Essential Working Too Hard with a $5 contribution says, rant on, Carey. I love it. Jason Baum contributes $4.99. He says, LOL, justice for nerds who are not racist. Oh, okay, these are from way back. Okay. Greg Henriksen has contributed $5. Thanks, Greg. We'll turn you blue. John Blue Nose Studley has contributed £2 and is insisting I have a Coke. I'm having a Coke now. Thank you. Chris Kingen with a $20 contribution says, this is just for being awesome. I didn't know being awesome paid well. Nice. Well, at least $20 worth of awesome. Hugh Wong has contributed $2. He says, I was scared because I saw RIP. I'm glad you're okay. Oh, we're talking about the thumbnail. Michael Dane contributed $20. He says, thank you for your support, Carey. I just gave my 25th computer away to another family in need. Here's $20 to say thank you for your support. You're thanking me for you to give computers to family in need that you've provided and done all the work for? You're welcome. Work harder so you can pay me more. Michael's very generous. Thank you, Michael. You're the man. You didn't think I wasn't going to say that, did you? Glenn's Music has contributed $5 Australian, and he says, with all this working from home, I'm starting to gain weight. Can you change me from a moderator to a refrigerator? Chill out. Try to think of something clever, but nothing's happening. Mike Yazzie has contributed $20. Thank you, Mike. Paul O'Brien with another €2 contribution. He says it looks good. He's talking about the video stream. Yeah, it was kind of glitchy. And Paul Ware has contributed $5. Okay, so I'm all caught up with the contributions. Thanks, you guys, again, for all of your support, your kindness. We've got just over 1,000 viewers watching. Why is overclocking dead? But you thought I was never going to get to that. Maximum PC Magazine, one of the few actual in-print magazines on computers still available. The editor of this magazine, his name is Zach Story. And Zach, I've had a number of editors over the past years of Maximum PC Magazine, from John Phillips, Gordon Ung, and I've interviewed them, whether it was here or the radio program. And Zach, here's what Zach looks like. Zach did this review that I'm about to write. I invited Zach to come on the show so I could talk to him, as I've talked to other Maximum PC editors. Sort of a tradition here. Zach wrote me back and he said, I don't know that I'm worthy of being interviewed, or something along those lines. Like, what are you talking about? He goes, I've only just started my career in computers 5 years ago. And I'm in England. You may not be aware that Maximum PC Magazine is a global publication. And I don't know that I'm somebody who really, I don't have the experience you have, and I'm fairly new. And I'm like, hold on a minute. You're telling me that you just decided one day, I want to be a tech journalist, and within 5 years you became the editor in charge of Maximum PC Magazine? That's incredible. What an accomplishment. You want to talk about inspiration. That's an amazing thing to do. In 5 years, you went from writing your first article to being the editor in charge of the magazine? Yes, I want to interview you. Yes, you are exactly worthy. You are exactly, you're the inspiration. You're the real deal. So I'm going to bring him on and we're going to talk. That's pretty cool. Let that be a lesson to all of you out there. Start now. Where will you be in 5 years? This is a review they did of the MSI Meg Z490. I guess I need to turn the magazine the way you can see it. And I briefly touched on this in a previous video, but I want to expand on it further because it explains why Overclocking is going, the manual overclocking is going away, and here's why. I'm going to read this article word for word. Again, Zach Story writes this review. They give this motherboard an 8 out of a 10. It says, let's just preface this by saying, yes, this is a $400 motherboard. However, we've already featured the Gigabyte Z490 Aorus Pro AX in our build in this same issue. They did a build with that motherboard. And the motherboard that Intel sent us with its media package is the insanely expensive ASUS ROG Maximus 12 Extreme, which currently clocks in at no less than $750. So weirdly, this is currently our only mid-range motherboard. $400 is mid-range. He says that's not to say there are not budget options out there. There's a bevy of boards below the $150 mark still harboring the Z490 chipset spec. And on top of that, manufacturers have launched the H470 chipset motherboards too, which are even cheaper than that. So what makes the MSI Meg Z490 Ace so special? Well, in a similar manner to ASUS's Apex series of motherboards, or EVGA's Dark lineup, it's all about providing a solid overclocking platform alongside a swath of modern connectivity and aesthetic design appeal. Now that might not sound very appealing to the average Joe, but you've got to understand that a lot of stock processor performance relies on that same overclocking heritage. It's all about the capacity of both your cooling solution and the motherboard's power delivery. Now, whether that's with Ryzen's PBO and auto overclocking features, or Intel's Turbo, or TVB, which is thermal velocity boost frequency technology, there's no longer a fixed max clock speed. Let me repeat that. Whether it's AMD Ryzen using what is called the PBO, which I talked about on the previous video, or TVB from Intel, there is no longer a fixed CPU clock speed. Let's take the Core 10900K, the i9 10900K as an example. You've got a base clock at 3.7 gigahertz. The Turbo 2.0 frequency, which it can achieve across all the cores when under load, is listed at 5.1 gigahertz. The Turbo Boost 3.0 frequency, now this is what the processor can achieve across its 4 best or fastest cores in lightly threaded tasks, is at 5.2 gigahertz. And finally, TVB, once again, that's the thermal velocity boost, which takes those same 2 to 4 cores beyond Turbo 3.0's max prescribed frequency if the processor is still under its target temperature and there's still available power budget. And what that means is that every single 10th gen processor will clock differently and behave differently across lightly threaded tasks depending on the silicon lottery, the cooling solutions, and the motherboard's ability to deliver the power. The silicon lottery, if you're not familiar with that term, means that every single CPU is unique. You can have 10 identical Ryzen CPUs, all the same make and model, or 10 of the same, the 10900Ks. Put them in the same motherboard, the same power supply, and the same parts with the same build, and you can get different maximum speeds out of each one of them. The one that can achieve higher speeds would be referred to as, winning the lottery. In other words, you don't know what's in the box. You don't know until you take the CPU out, plug it in, and start to put pressure on it, test it, what it's capable of doing. So when Intel did the 9900KS, what they were doing was binning. It's called binning, meaning they would test the CPUs for those that were most overclockable and then relabel them as KS. So if you were an overclocker and you started with a KS chip, you knew you had good silicon that was tested at Intel. And that's why Intel only offered this for a short period of time, because it's Costs a lot of money to pay employees to sit there and test these things all day, figure out, because they're all technically the same, but when you actually run them, some run better than others. And so they took the one that ran better than others, put them in a different pile, called that the 9900KS, and all the other ones remained just 9900Ks. The manufacturing process is the same, just so happens this is the way it works, right? Some just come out better, who knows? They don't know why. It just is. So to that end, the MSI MEG Z490 Ace comes packing with a 16+1 power phase design. That's 16 for CPU V-Core and 1 for the SoC, silicon on chip, and dual 8-pin EPS power connectors. Wow, 2 8-pin CPU power connectors. And what that means is you have a perfectly balanced mirrored power arrangement, further backed up by an intersil digital PWM controller feeding 8 intersil phase controllers. That then goes into 16 individual 90A, is that amps? That can't be right. Power stages, MOSFETs. I'm going to read that sentence again because I kind of broke it up a bit. Okay, squeaker, hold on. He says that then goes into 16 individual 90A power stages MOSFETs, each paired with a titanium choke 3. What that means. In comparison, last gen's Z390 Ace features a 12+1 setup with a maximum amperage of 720A, half of that of the 1440A in the Z490 MEG Ace. That in part is why we've seen a new chipset and a new socket as well. Intel's clearly seen that its Comet Lake processors will pull more power and generate more heat, and has re-engineered the chipset and motherboard requirements to compensate for that. Ultimately, what that leads to with MSI's MEG Z490 Ace is a fantastically well-equipped motherboard, not only in its connectivity, but also in its capacity to deliver strong stock performance if the conditions are right. We've of course also seen improvements with the onboard connectivity with Wi-Fi 6, 2.5G Ethernet, improved audio, support for up to 3 M.2 drives, all with heat sinks, a bevy of USB ports littered everywhere, and impressive memory support topping out in capacity at 128 gigs, which is 4 sticks of 32 gigs each, at 4,000 megahertz, or max frequency memory of 4,800 megahertz with 32 gigs, 2 16 gigabit sticks. If you're after a mid-range king of a motherboard and you have $400 to spare and don't quite mind the eccentric stylings and those copper gold accents, the MSI MEG Z490 Ace is a fine choice for your rig. The only caveat is it's quite expensive, especially compared to some of the perhaps better equipped competitors at a similar price. MSI is banking on that power delivery bearing fruit, and as the platform matures and the BIOS updates bring more performance, we hope so too. Is that enough to offset the price? Well, we'll leave that up to you. So what Zach is telling us is the motherboard manufacturers are now auto overclocking, right? We talked about this with the issues with AMD. Most motherboards now, they're automatically pushing the chip beyond spec, and it's resulting in some pretty bizarre performance results when testing heat sinks and coolers. You're like, well, why is this cooler not working so well? Well, because your CPU is not running at stock, and the BIOS manufacturer or the motherboard manufacturer isn't telling you. I mean, you have to go in there and hunt this down. And the argument is that this should all be stock by default. When I put a brand new system together, it shouldn't auto overclock it. But that's exactly what the new trend is, and we're going to see more and more of that. Now, I know some of you are saying, well, you could still buy a cheaper motherboard and overclock it by hand, but the cheaper motherboard won't have all the power phasing and everything to deliver the power that would achieve the best overclock. You need a more expensive motherboard with more expensive components to achieve that higher overclock, and those more expensive boards are already doing it for you, therefore negating the need to experiment with it, apart from maybe doing the outrageous sort of liquid nitrogen cooling Guinness World Record breaking frequency achievement where the CPU burns out in 15 minutes. There are people who do that. They will completely they will have a bevy, they will have a number of CPUs, all the same make and model. They have liquid nitrogen. I don't know, you just go to Walmart and get that? And they have no desire to use this machine in real life. Their only purpose is to achieve the highest speed possible and then let the thing die. And they can say, look what I did. It's sort of like building a car to achieve a maximum speed, and that the car has to be completely rebuilt. Well, drag racing. When you watch a drag race, those engines are often rebuilt every 2 or 3 races. They're always rebuilding the engines. Even though those engines only run for about, when the light turns green to run that quarter mile at over 300 miles an hour, it's generally done in about 7 seconds or less, maybe 5. It's been a while since I've seen drag racing, but it kills the engine, but they achieve the speed in exchange. So if you're one of those people, then overclocking is still the same as it's always been. But for the rest of us, this idea of going through and trying to eke out more performance, it's all happening automatically if you buy a Z490 board or you buy on AMD side like an X570. This is already happening. And as we move forward into motherboards going towards the next series of chips from AMD, the next series of chips from Intel, we will continue to see this being the normal. And the CPU manufacturers, why leave performance on the table, right? If you can sell it, if you can eke out a little more performance, why wouldn't you? So the motherboard manufacturers are starting to realize that that's a selling point. If you buy the same CPU as me, and you buy the same RAM, and the same case, the same power supply, the same storage, you're running the same operating system, but you went with a different motherboard, and your system benchmarks faster than mine, and we're both running it with stock, unchanged BIOS settings, default BIOS settings, which board would you want to buy? So the idea of tweaking all these little BIOS settings, whether it's voltage or it's your bus speed or what have you, it's the beginning of the end of that. The boards are doing it automatically for you. This creates a problem for techs, because if a board is pushing a CPU harder than the cooling that's on it, it's going to result in some weird behaviors. And this will be a difficult thing for techs to acknowledge and start to watch for. This is brand new. I've been a tech for 29 years professionally. I've been paid as a technician consistently in 29 years without a break, right? Without switching careers and coming back. This is all I've ever done. This will be the first time in my career where I will need to learn a new diagnostic, which is to just simply, and I can't do this remotely, by the way. This has to be done in person, or you can teach your customer how to hold the phone up to the screen and show you the BIOS, I guess, that way. But for the most part, you need to be in front of the machine and look at the BIOS, because they're all different, right? Different manufacturers and different BIOS versions are going to vary where those settings are located. And you've got to know where they need to be, because setting them to auto means it's going to overclock them. So now we need to manually go in to just not overclock. It's completely flipped. But you still want the best cooling, right? You still want the best power supply, and you still want the best motherboard in order to achieve the best performance from the chip. As long as people keep being chip fanboys, AMD or Intel, then they remain completely ignorant of the importance of the motherboard and the BIOS and how it affects the performance of that chip. We can talk all day about how great and how fast a Ferrari is, but I promise you that if you put really bad tires on that Ferrari, it's not going to run very well at all. Your experience will be not like what other Ferrari owners talk about. So to discount the importance of those tires because it's a Ferrari is not seeing the forest through the trees. In other words, you're you're so tunnel visioned and myopic in your view of how important the chip is that you're failing to acknowledge how the motherboard, as well as the RAM, as well as your power supply, as well as your storage, will impact the overall performance of what you've purchased. It's not just buy an AMD chip and everything's going to be fine. There are pros and cons to both AMD and Intel, and whichever one you choose to buy is fine. But this idea that just focusing on the chip, that's the really good chip, it's very short-sighted. And a computer isn't just made up of a chip. And to assume that every item that works with that chip is a superior item to the competitors, like every Intel motherboard therefore is good, and so if I buy Intel, it doesn't work like that. There are some crappy Intel motherboards, there are some crappy AMD motherboards, and I don't care how good of a chip you put on it. The motherboard is still ultimately going to decide your performance. And of course, as I mentioned, your RAM, your storage, and even your power supply have an impact on that as well, especially when it starts to auto overclock and starts drawing more power than you thought you needed. So this idea of sitting down and getting into the BIOS and tweaking all these settings by hand, you're not really going to achieve anything of any significance beyond what the system is going to do automatically now. You might gain a little teeny tiny bit, but besides benchmarking it, you would never see that in practicality in everyday life of using the computer. You're just not going to see it. So this is the beginning of the end for overclocking because it's all being done automatically on both the Intel and AMD side. Currently it's happening on the high end Z490 and X570 boards pretty much across the line, pretty much with a few exceptions. It's also been done on some of the other chipsets, though not as common. There's still a few out there that do it. And I'm predicting that this is the new trend and that this is what we're going to see going forward from all motherboard manufacturers for Intel and AMD both. Therefore, you don't need to worry about it anymore. It's all being handled for you, and it's a selling point for the motherboard manufacturer, right? If my motherboard can run higher performance with all the same components as your friend's motherboard, wouldn't you want mine? And it doesn't require any special education or a whole bunch of time invested in testing and trying to figure out where the system is stable. I should have seen this one coming. It makes sense. Motherboard manufacturers have to do something more to get your business. They're all sort of doing all the same thing, and so you've only got basically 4 major players in motherboards now. It's ASRock, Asus, Gigabyte, or MSI. That's pretty much it. I know the EVGA makes some motherboards, and there's a couple little players, but those are the 4 big ones, and for the most part, you probably own one of those 4 if you've built your own computer. If I'm missing one, please let me know, but I think that's pretty much it. So in order to differentiate themselves now, since they're all, first of all, fewer pickings of selection to choose from, they need to do something different in order to add value, to give you some incentive to pick their product over their competitors. And so, of course, now the competitors are going to do it because they have to. And so the wheel goes around. A couple of contributions have come in while I've been talking here. Let's see. Don Dixon contributes $2 Canadian. Hey, Don, thank you for that. Nunman1962 contributes $35. He goes, hey, Carey, here's a little something for the Samsung 970 EVO Plus drive and the Windows 10 key sales. I feel I should donate more just for that info alone. I'll be using those for an ITX build I'm doing soon. Right on, Nunman1962. Thank you. It's very generous of you. Yeah, I've got a couple mini ITX builds coming up myself. Dean Despot. Oh, I'm going to try this, Dean. I'm going to try your last name here. Let's see. Dean Despotovsky has contributed 20 Australian dollars. How'd I do? Did I do all right with that? Dean says, thank you for sharing Stefan's story. I love your compassion for people and technology. Quick question. Looking at either a 5600 XT or a 2060 for 1080p gaming, what are your thoughts? I don't have a GPU at the moment, and I need one ASAP. I'm not a fan of Radeon because the drivers have historically had issues. Now, technology is always improving and evolving. In fact, up until recently, there wasn't even an auto update to let you know when a new driver was available for Radeon cards. Nvidia's had that forever. Like it seems like they've had it a very long time to let you know when. And driver updates are very, very important. So whether you're going with a 5600 XT or a 2060, I don't think you can go wrong. If it was me, I stick with Nvidia. I'm familiar with their driver delivery. I am familiar with the frequency of the driver updates, and I am familiar with the number of issues the drivers cause versus the number of issues Radeon drivers cause or have caused in the past. Now, just because it happened that way in the past doesn't mean it's going to be that way in the future. But I don't think you've ever seen a Radeon card on my channel except for Threadripper, and I despise that Vega 64. I despise it. It's heavy, it's loud, it doesn't perform very well. I don't know that I have driver concerns, but it's more than driver issues. But, chat room, please voice your opinion and help Dean make a decision. Why should Dean pick a 5600 XT over a 2060? Or why should Dean pick a 2060 over a 5600 XT? State your thoughts in the chat if you would, and let's give Dean a little more food for thought than my limited opinion. Because remember, I'm building for a different reason. I'm building something that I have to support, and I'm building something that I need to be trouble-free and that I need to be able to, make a profit from so I can stay in business. Because you're not under those same requirements, there may be other considerations that people in chat will have for you to consider. Geo Johnson's contributed $10. He says, I saw that you shared my video with the community. Thank you. I have the same motherboard you're using. By the way, it does have a 4-pin RGB port at the bottom edge. I don't use RGB though. So the concern was that it's not a RGB, addressable RGB. So the CPU fan that I used here is an ARGB compatible, but the Z390M motherboard only has regular RGB. I think one's 12 volts and one's 5 volts, so it's incompatible and it won't work. But the cooler is not adequate for that CPU anyway, so that's coming off, and that'll go in the recycle bin probably. It's not as the CPU fan was rated at like 200 TDP, which I think was very generous. I will end up putting I think I'm going to put the Noctua on here. In fact, I've got one. I'm going to just get away from the RGB. I thought it'd be fun to experiment with some different coolers just for fun. And now that fun has put me further behind in my workload, which is causing me a lot of stress and anxiety. And I may end up doing this off camera, but this is the Noctua NHU12S, which appears to be pretty similar to Scythe's Mugen 5 and Cooler Master's Hyper 212 Evo Black Edition, only it's made by Noctua, or Noctua, however you want to say that. And I normally won't recommend these coolers because I think the value isn't there. I don't think that this cooler really performs that much better than a Scythe Mugen 5 or even a Hyper 212 Evo from Cooler Master. But maybe I'm wrong. I've never installed one of these ever. I've installed other Noctua coolers, and they work well. I also like Sony, but whenever you buy anything from Sony, it's always more money because it's got SONY written on it, which apparently adds about 40% to the price. 30 to 40% markup because it says Sony. But it doesn't mean it's junk. I'm not saying it's junk. What I'm saying is you don't know that if I'm looking at a Sony TV and I'm looking at a Samsung TV, the Sony is more expensive. But am I really seeing the difference on the picture, or is there any difference in what appears to be the build quality? And in general, there is slightly an improvement with the Sony, but I don't feel that matches the price difference. Like I feel like I'm getting something that's 10% better, but I'm paying 30 to 40% more to get that 10%. That's what I feel like with Noctua. I feel like they're overpriced, but they do a lot of marketing, which is why you probably are familiar with the name Noctua. They send a lot of products out for reviews. And as a result, you hear about Noctua a lot. You don't hear about Scythe because they don't have that marketing budget. Because they don't have that marketing budget, they don't have to charge 2 to 3 times the amount of money for their coolers. So the Noctua NH-U12S today on Amazon, just to give you some comparison of what I'm talking about. NH-U12S. This is $70. It's $69.95. It's a 120 millimeter fan, single tower, CPU, 158 millimeters in height, doesn't overhang the RAM slots, doesn't block the PCIe on most ATX and micro ATX motherboards. It's got a fan flow with a low noise adapter and PWM connector for automatic speed control. Whisper quiet at idle. Includes high-end NTH1 thermal compound and SecuFirm 2 mounting system for easy installation. And it's backed up by a 6-year manufacturer's warranty. And it is the deluxe choice for Core i9, i7, i5, i3, even 10900Ks, 10700K, 10600K, 10980XE, and AMD Ryzen like 3950X, 3900, 3700X, and 3600X. Okay, so it's not as expensive as I thought. So they've come down a bit. $70. Amazon shows there's 4 in stock. I've not installed this particular model of Noctua, but it's black. I think it's going to match well to the colors that are, the color scheme happening on the this Fantex build. So we'll pull that off and we'll just put on this, and then we'll test it and we'll see how cool it runs. The Scythe Mugen 5 is out of stock in Amazon, but it sells typically for $48.99. Again, this is all US pricing. So $49 compared to $69. There's a $20 price differential. What am I getting for 20 bucks? Is this going to cool significantly better than a Mugen 5? The reason I don't want the Mugen 5 is it's silver. Be Quiet's Pure Rock 2, or is it Dark Rock 2? Their CPU cooler and the Hyper 212 may also cool equivalently as well. In fact, just out of curiosity, 70 bucks, I'm actually surprised that's that cheap. I think it's called the Dark Rock 2. I could be mixing my. It's so difficult for me to remember. Pure Rock 2. It's the Pure Rock 2. So you can get a Pure Rock 2 in black from Be Quiet. And I'm seeing it available for $44.90, which is very inexpensive. Wow, that's cheaper than the Scythe Mugen 5. There's some food for thought for me to think about now. Given that the Mugen 5s have been constantly out of stock at Amazon, I just realized the Pure Rock 2 is nearly $5 cheaper, and it's black instead of that silver. Now, I do know they make a Mugen 5 in black. Let me see if I can find it. Well, they have the Mugen 5 TUF Gaming Alliance, which is designed for like the Asus TUF line, which has a black and yellow kind of theme. I guess if you're a Steelers fan, that's great. I thought they had another one that was just black, but maybe. Maybe it's a different model altogether. Maybe that's why I'm not finding it. Then, of course, the Hyper 212, they have an all black edition could save you a little bit more money, though I know it doesn't cool quite as well. It does a very, very good job nonetheless. It's also a 120 millimeter fan, and they have a black edition with RGB on the fan for $44.99. They call it anodized gunmetal black. That's interesting because gunmetal is usually a grayish color, but okay. I was looking to see what its rated TDP is. I'm not exactly sure. They have a number of different Hyper 212 Evos. This is the Hyper 212 RGB BE. I got to imagine BE is Black Edition. But it looks like Be Quiet is still the cheaper, they're the bargain one of all of these coolers. I was not aware of that. Well, I'll tell you what, I will need to do some testing, right? Like I wasn't busy enough. Now I'm curious if they're all pretty much the same. Because if the Mugen 5 and the Hyper 212 Evo and the Be Quiet Pure Rock 2 and the Noctua U12S, if they all perform within a couple degrees centigrade of each other and they're all quiet, then we're just looking at price. Be curious which one's the best value, which one's quietest, which one's easier to install, what's available to buy, because if Scythe wins the competition and they win across the board, they're out of stock anyway. What are you going to do? So and of course right now my concern is color. I don't see a black edition of just the Mugen 5. So I think Scythe is going to need to address that. Michael Dane has contributed again $10. He says, here's an extra $10 towards a case of Coca-Cola. Thanks, Mike. Tom Jackson contributes $7.77. He said, I sent the iFixit tools so you can tear apart stubborn, crappy coolers. Well, that's what I have a hammer for. Well, again, I imagine there will be some tool in there that'll save my bacon at some point, but this won't be like a regular thing for me. I just have to remember I have it. That's my problem. I'll run into a problem and I'll try and think about how to solve it. And I will have to remember that you sent me this, because that's probably when it's going to come most in handy. Especially, I'm particularly eyeballing the spudging tools that allow you to push in where two pieces of plastic are clipped together, and you don't want to use a screwdriver to gouge into that. And I do have the one little spudger tool, but it's metal. These are all plastic in here. I see there's a few of them in there. And this is kind of heavy too. So I appreciate you sending it. And this is everything that's in it for those of you that are interested, if you want to read the back of the box. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do now. Dogs need to eat. I need to get a system up on the bench. I need to get this out of the way. And I'm going to bring my friend Ron's computer up on the bench, and we're going to change the motherboard out in the next video. So if you guys want to stick around, I'm going to put an end to this video and officially stop it so I don't end up with a 12-hour video. I'm going to start another video, and that'll be the motherboard replacement on the Mini ITX system, which was the Leon Lee TU-150 build that I did a couple months ago now. I mailed that system to my friend in Illinois, and it's freezing on him randomly. It worked fine for me, but I didn't sit in front of it for 4 or 5 hours. He says he'd be watching a YouTube video, and then the whole system freezes. And I sent him some RAM, because I thought maybe he had some bad RAM. That's not fixed it. So he has returned the system back to me as I have requested. And I bought an open box motherboard from Amazon because I'm a glutton for punishment. And I'm going to swap the board. So I hope you'll come back here. Give me about 15 or 20 minutes to reset things here in the kitchen. I'll get his system out, get the motherboard out, get the dogs fed, and I hope you'll come back and join me for video number 2 for today. I've got catching up to do since I didn't have any videos the last 3 days. I am, well, duh, well, just a little busy. So my thanks to everybody who's contributed during today's broadcast. Sorry, this is what happens when I try and read the. I'm trying to read the chat and talk to you at the same time. So again, a thank you to Tom Jackson, Michael Dane, Geo Johnson, Dean Despotowski. I'm going to try it again. Dean Despotovsky, Nunman 1962, Don Dixon, Paul Ware, Paul O'Brien, Mike Yazzie, Glenn's Music, Michael Dane again, Hugh Wong, Chris Kingen, John Bluenose Studley, Greg Henriksen, or Henrichsen, Henrichsen. Could be Greg Henrichsen. I feel like I'm overpronouncing that. Jason Baum, an Essential Working Too Hard, Majestic White Tiger, OG Gaming with a couple contributions there earlier. David Austin, who I never did find out what he said he's a sellout for. Why is he a sellout? What did I miss? John Bluenose Studley again. Paul O'Brien again. The first contribution today was from Mira Ora. Thank you guys so much for supporting the channel, helping to keep me free of those big corporate sponsorships that can, well, as I talked to you earlier, can really interfere with the quality of the content. And I'm not opposed to sponsorship. It's got to be the right partnership. And right now, the folks over at Cyber Systems with RoboForm have been a delight to work with. And we're looking forward to bringing them on tomorrow so we can show a little bit about the basics of how RoboForm works for people who are. I've had a few people email me and say, I don't understand how this works. So we'll show just the basics. RoboForm's a pretty powerful tool. And some people had some concerns with it, but I don't think they're using it properly. So because they're not using it properly, potentially maybe why they have some complaint or issue. We'll see about that, because we're going to show you basically, the simplicity of the minimal thing you can do with it, right, with RoboForm. Its most basic function. We won't go totally in depth with it until another interview in the future. We're going to start out with just, if no other reason, you just do these 2 clicks and it'll save you so much time and effort that in and of itself is worth paying for the product. And I think you'll agree, but that's scheduled for tomorrow. I don't know if we're going to air it live. We might pre-record it and then I might air it afterwards because of the, we're going to have some screen sharing technical difficulties that we have to get around, because I want Simon from Cyber Systems to share a screen with a test account. I don't want to show you all my logins. So we have to create a sort of a simulated account so we can show you how it works without, potential security issues by. It'd be like if a credit card commercial showed you a real credit card. It's not real numbers on there. You know that, right? That 1, 2, 3, 4, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, that's just made up because it's on TV. So we have to do something similar with RoboForm. But right now it's a permanent sale, 30% off for all the viewers who want to purchase it. But there's going to be a bigger discount offered very soon. So if you're thinking about buying it, I'm going to say hold off, save a little bit of money. Just hold off a little bit and you'll save a little bit of money, because we're going to offer it at a steep discount for a limited time. We'll talk about that when the interview happens. So that's what's happening. That's what's going on. Let me wrap this up. My thanks to all my friends in blue for helping to keep it civil in the chat room today. I haven't really been distracted by anything in there in quite a long time, and I know that's thanks to you guys staying on top of it. DJ Aftershock just sent $2. He says, will we see the Intermax at the shooting range? I haven't been shooting in about 2 years. Probably not. Probably not. I think it's just going to go in a recycle bin. But right now, it's sitting in a parts bin. I sort of have a box that has stuff that I intend to throw away, but I've not yet thrown it away, thinking I might be able to use it for something, some crazy idea. but it hasn't happened yet. So one of two things will happen first. I'll have some crazy idea on what to do with it, or I'll destroy it and recycle it. I don't know. I have no idea. It's, believe me, on the list of things I've got to do, that's not even on the list. That's how busy I am. But thank you for the support and contribution. Again, thanks to not only all the friends in blue, but everybody who's not yet blue. It's my goal to make everybody blue. I want to see a community of kind and supportive people, and we all share an interest in computers. There's no reason for us to hate on each other. There's no benefit to it. And I really love when I post a video notification that I'm going to be live at, in 2 hours or whatever, that people come in and they start talking to each other as if they're old friends, or they're friends that only see each other in my chat room. That is like the best thing ever. So I hope that you have made some friends with other folks in the chat room, that you have that to look forward to, if no other reason, that you get to talk to each other. Forget me and my content, that you guys are in there and you're sharing your passion for technology and your enthusiasm and supporting one another and not attacking one another. It's really a cool thing to watch happen, because you're all over the world, right? So somebody in New Zealand is talking with somebody in England, and there's a guy in Florida, and you're all friends. Where else could that happen? It's really, really cool. All right, guys, let me get out of here. If you enjoy the video, as a reminder, the kind thing that you can do for any YouTube content creator to let them know that you like the video is to hit that blue thumbs up button. It's free, doesn't cost you anything. Even if you're watching on your TV, if you play around with the buttons on your remote, the option to hit that blue like button is there, I promise you. And of course, if you want to be notified anytime I publish new content, you've got to hit the subscribe button and make sure notifications, there they are, make sure those are turned on. You've got to click it, they're off by default. And then you'll be emailed or sent out a message depending on how you set it up in your YouTube account. If you're not getting the notifications, what I recommend you do is just create a free Gmail account. Then tell the Gmail account, make sure that you set up your YouTube account with Gmail. Then tell Gmail to forward all of your mail to whatever email address you normally use. And then that way, when I go live, I promise you, because Gmail is owned by Google and YouTube is owned by Google, those notifications always work. A lot of people complain they're not getting the notifications, and those people are not using Gmail. You never have to log into Gmail ever again. Once you set that account up and you tell it to forward all your incoming mail to your regular email address, you'll never again need to revisit Gmail. You don't have to use it. Once it's set up that way, it'll stay that way. Just set a good secure password so nobody hacks your account and starts sending out spam on your behalf, like what happened with so many Yahoo email account users. That will generally fix the notification problems. Apart from that, I do plan on having a regular filming schedule. Once I get caught up with work, if I can get the other studio up and running, I expect to have at least 2 days a week where I will be live starting at a specific time. And then as time permits, I may broadcast on other days, but at the very least, you'll know that on certain days and at certain times every week I will always be live. I'm working to that end, but I haven't got there yet, and it's going to be probably another month or two before that's possible. So the only way you would know if I'm live is with the notifications, or to randomly check in here between 1 o'clock and 4 o'clock Pacific time, because if I'm live, that's generally when I do it. And again, there are always exceptions. So generally that is when I go live. That being said, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up today's video. Thanks you guys so much for watching. Thanks for all of your support, all the kindness. And I will be back here. Give me 15, 20 minutes, and I'll have the TU-150 system up, and we'll dismantle it, take the board out, move the CPU, RAM, and solid state drive over to the new board, get it installed, and fire it up. If it's working, great, bolt it back down, and I can mail it back off to my friend Ron. I'm not going to spend hours testing it. Like if I send it back to him and he says it's still randomly freezing, then the only other thing it can be is the power supply. and it is using the small form factor power supply. And the options are few. When you're looking for a power supply for your build, you are pages and pages and pages of options. But if you're looking for a small form factor or SFF power supply, there might be a half dozen to choose from that are available and in stock. So it's not like I have a bunch of those laying around. So we'll see what ends up happening. I really strongly suspect we have a bad motherboard. So that's what we're going to do. If it boots up and it works, I'll send it back off to my buddy and let him be the tester. If it freezes again, then he'll send it back again. We'll figure it out. This is maddening. In the meantime, thanks so much for watching. I hope you'll come back in about 15 or 20 minutes and catch the motherboard replacement video on the Lian Li TU150 build. And until then, finding an outro. There we go. All right. All right. Until next time, bye for now.